Working on the gas pedal, accelerator pedal. The hole that's in the firewall there was from I think a choke cable. I don't know if that was factory or not, but there's a hole there. Both those holes are already there where the cable comes through, and the bolt hole for that. So if I can avoid drilling more holes or filling more holes in the firewall, I'm happy with that. And this bolt hole was even part of the old accelerator pedal assembly, so I've reused that. But it's not, I'm going to have to modify this whole lower piece. I'm only getting a little bit of throttle out of it because of where this is bent at, and it needs to come over this way. The stock pedal is about right here. It's actually attached to this cover over the transmission. So I'm going to cut this bracket off right there, and I'm going to just build another piece that comes out over here like that, and then go from there. I think that'll be fine. The angles look good. We'll have to just do a lot of test fitting here to see what I like, but this is all too close together even if it did work anyway, because I want to put a bigger pedal on this, and I hate those cars when you step down on the brake you hit the gas at the same time. So we're going to fix that. Like I said, we're going to come clear out over here with a different piece and reattach the pedal to that, and then make sure we're getting full range of motion on that. But I think that'll work, but I won't know until I start chopping on it. The main thing is I want it comfortable, because I don't have cruise control in this, and if the pedal's in an awkward position, I'm going to hate it. So this is going to take some trial and error. And this is what it looks like on this side. Let me get those wires out of the way. So I'll have to build a little gasket for that, but that hole and this hole were already there. This one, I don't know if I even need that hole, you know, if I can just put a gasket there and leave that bolt out. I don't really think it's necessary. It seems like that's holding it in perfectly fine with just the one bolt, and then we won't have any problem getting over here to the intake where that goes. That cable's nice and flexible. I think that'll work. Here's what I'm thinking for pedal placement. So I've got the original one where it is, so I'm using this wire as my kind of my mock-up of where I want to go. So I'll just come across there, the little piece of angle iron, and then I can cut this pedal off right here where it goes straight and weld it on to that piece of angle iron right there. So that's going to give me, it's going to not go clear to the floor, but there's no need for that, I don't think. So that should, I think, will be okay, but I've got to start mocking and tack welding and bending and all that stuff till I get it just right, and then test it out for comfort, and we'll go from there. What I've done to make this a little bit easier is I spot welded this piece of baling wire to the accelerator pedal and bent it to the shape that I'm going for, so that I just am taking some iron here and just following that path, and then I'll go that way with the gas pedal. So I think that's going to work pretty good, hopefully. Got the throttle assembly mostly done. This is how it's come out. So I've got pretty good distance now from my pedals, and I drew here. It's kind of hard to see. You can see the lines of where the old pedal was, so it's right about where that was. Something I didn't account for is that since I took that rubber bushing out of between the firewall and this, I'm going to have to get an adjustment in. I need this cable to come out farther, so I need to put a little throttle stop or ferrule, whatever they call on that. So I'll just cut this one off and then screw another one on so I can take that slack out of the throttle cable. I hadn't thought of that, so that'll give me, I needed about 3 inches of pedal movement is what the factory one had, so that'll put me where I need to be there, and that'll give me 3 inches there to, should get full throttle, I hope. If not, I'll have to tweak this again, but I think it came out right. It doesn't look perfect, but not that anybody's gonna see it from up here, but it looks fine from the driver's seat up here, as you can tell. Maybe if I can get an angle on it there, like that. So that feels pretty good right there. That I kind of angled it over this way a little bit like the factory one was, so it's kind of facing me. It maybe look a little crooked, but it's not, as I'm sitting center of the steering column and putting my foot kind of off to the side. I think that feels pretty good, and I can kind of keep my foot down here for light driving and still do whatever. So I think I'll be happy with that. I'll order a throttle stop and then drill the other hole once I decide exactly where I want to position. I got a little bit of leeway there, and then we'll call her quits for that. But I think we're good. Here's I mocked the throttle body, and I don't know if this thing's EGR, what this is. It's coolant goes into it, so it's mostly probably just for heating this up in the wintertime. But the throttle comes out there, zips around here. That's all factory. So the piece that I took out is right here, so that added a spacer in the firewall I didn't think of. So I just need to take that slack out with an adjustment, and we should be good. So I'll order that and go from there. So I'm making the throttle linkage adjustable, the throttle cable. So I cut the factory soldered on piece off the end, and then I bought these little cable stops. There's the part number for that. It comes in a few different sizes. I had to drill the hole out. It was way smaller than I needed it to be, but not a big deal, so I just drilled that out a little bit. I think you're only supposed to put one screw in this from one side, but I think it would be better to come in from both sides and pinch it from both sides like that. So that's what my plan is. That would be nice equal pressure on that cable without trying to kink it. So we'll give that a try. Slide it back through the firewall and set up the adjustment and give it a try. Something else real fast that I would recommend is after I cut that end off, this wire starts to want to unravel. So I just took a crimp and just crimped that in. That'll keep those wires from wanting to come undone. It'll also keep that from sliding out, but that shouldn't be a issue. And then also went ahead and made a little gasket to go between there and the firewall to help seal up that hole that's a little bit bigger than the piece here. This is what it looks like installed, and now it's nice and tight, so that's at the very top, and I've got I've checked it out there. The throttle body's wide open when I do that. It's about 3 inches of travel, so that should work, assuming that thing doesn't loosen up over time. I might have to throw some Loctite on those before I'm all done, just to make sure. But here's what a pedal looks like. It feels pretty good. It's not, I don't know if it's perfect. Maybe a while of driving it will help, but it's pretty good for me, I think. I need to get that brake pedal fixed. That's going to drive me nuts, but maybe later. The more I looked at the clutch cable setup, the more I started to not like it. The way it was rubbing on the cable housing, and as when it came around, it was riding up on the other part of that clutch fulcrum, or whatever that's called. So there was a little knockout above the old hole, which is where it is now, and I had to hog it out just a little bit, but it's still not perfectly in alignment, but it's closer than it was. So I'm liking this better. This comes around and doesn't run into the other piece. It feels good, so I think I need maybe tighten that up a hair more, but so I'm liking that a lot more. It's low enough that it shouldn't hit my windshield wiper arm. That should be at the very bottom of travel right there. I'll show you what I did out here. I had to trim the plastic piece. You can see I had to trim that to fit into the firewall there, but that shouldn't be a problem. So I'm gonna like this better. Of course, now I have another hole I need to fill, but that's not the end of the world, since it'll, I think, make things better. Shorten the cable up again a hair more, but I think clearance here we're still okay, especially if I put some heat wrap around the tubes or some heat wrap around that. So definitely have to do that. But I'm liking that better, and I wish I would have done that from the get-go. Since changing the location of the clutch cable to that higher position, I started looking down here at the header situation again where that cable goes by, and I decided to change it up again. So I'm back to going to the outside of the header instead of the inside, and the bind's not too bad. I think it was a little bit worse when it was down in that lower hole, although I don't know really why. I don't think that'd be enough to make a difference, but this still feels good as far as the cable pull goes, and that ought to keep that, I think should keep that cable from melting, and then it also protects that steering box from getting hot too. So I think that's a good solution for now until I change my mind again later, but we'll see how that goes.